Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. For today's video, I want to talk through some things that have been on my mind recently. So I've played through the game up until level 80 once, 81, up until level 60 or 61 twice, and to level 40 three times. And so obviously with each playthrough, I learn new things. This is a game that can never be perfected, if you will, but there's always things to think about, things to optimize, things that you learn on the way through. So now that I've got to level 60 again and I've played through the game multiple times, I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on what different stages of the game tend to look like, things that I tend to prioritize at different points that feel really optimized, and the way that I prefer to do things. And so today I want to talk about specifically the transition that naturally happens at level 60 and all of the things that kind of go along with that. So I really do think, after playing through the game again, that the most important level in the game, or one of the most important transition phases, happens at level 60. And so once you hit level 60, you get your 7th expand or 7th square in your shop, right? And so right around when you hit level 60, or if you play naturally and master things as you go and stick with very few bins, it's right around the time when you would have everything tier 7 and below completely mastered. Like on this account, other than just a chest item I just got, everything tier 7 and below is completely mastered. And that happened basically right when I hit level 60, or a level or two before that. And so naturally, it actually makes sense that you don't get tier 3 bins out until after you hit level 60, which actually allows you to focus on energy a lot more and be able to get to level 60 more efficiently. It also gives you a lot more time for your upgrades to gradually go up, where you can have, let's say, one or two of each tier 1 bin, just one of each tier 2 bin, focus energy elsewhere, have 2,000 energy by the time you hit level 60. With natural progression, that's kind of the way that it goes. The other thing is that often I say the best use of gems, obviously after the first 600 that you have to spend to have gems available in market, is going to be spent on your expansion, right? 4,000 gems for the level 75 expansion and 5,000 gems for the level 80 expansion. Nobody's going to wait until those levels to get those expands, and so it makes sense to spend the gems on that right away. So when you hit level 60, that is going to be your biggest dump of gems, unless, of course, you've spent a bunch of gems before that point. But naturally, you're going to be spending 4,000 and an additional 5,000 gems if you have it on shop expands once you hit 60. There's no point in rushing those expands before that, in my personal opinion, simply because you're not going to have the time to get those upgrades going. There's going to be too many things getting your attention in terms of upgrades, and things are just going to progress a lot slower, I think. Whereas if you just do it naturally, you have a really good base of upgrades for both bins and racks and counter and chests and all of the things that you need in terms of upgrades, and then you can really hit the ground running when you hit level 60. And so potentially at level 60, you could be getting this expand and another expand for 4,000 gems, maybe even another if you saved up 9,000. And then at that point, you've got 8 more furniture slots. So let's just assume that you have 16 furniture slots when you hit level 60. If you get one extra expand and the natural one at level 60, which is 200 mil, right? Let's say you get both of those. That is the point that I would add on additional tier 1 resources, additional tier 2 resources, and your tier 3 resources. So if that's the case, let's say before you're running 2 tier 1 and 1 tier 2, and then at level 60, you would maybe go up to 3 tier 1 and 2 tier 2. So that would add 8 bins total. Plus, you're going to want to add at least, let's say, 3 of each tier 3 bin, because that's when you're going to be going into tier 8 and beyond. And so, in my opinion, the vast majority of your furniture slots, once you hit level 60, let's say you get 16 of them, probably 14 of the 16 are just going to be spent on expanding your bins, because you're going to need those more bins out to be starting to craft tier 8, tier 9, tier 10 stuff. Okay, now at this point as well, like for me, I've unlocked every single tier 8 item except for these 2, and I have almost enough to unlock both of them now. I only need 4 more scrolls and that's done. And so if you've played naturally, I'm at about 3.5 months of playtime here. I've finished most of the events, all that kind of stuff, or as far as I could get in the events, open chests, like just played as you normally would. And at this point, I'm at level 61 and I can unlock all tier 8s. So at this point, once you have like everything tier 7 and below out, and your tier 3 resources starting to go out so that you can craft tier 8, tier 9, tier 10 stuff. Now is the point that I think it makes sense to start transitioning. A lot of people ask me, and it actually comes up quite often, like, when do I start to specialize? When do I start to ascend certain lines? When do I decide, long term what I'm going to craft? And honestly, I think that it makes a whole lot of sense to start deciding that at level 60, because that's when you start going into tier 8s. Then you can go into tier 9s and tier 10s naturally. Like if you look at my daggers, naturally I've been able to master the tier 8. I'm almost done mastering the tier 9, and when I have had the resources for it, which obviously I don't have access to market on this account, but I'm starting to even go into tier 10s. And because I went to a 3-2-3 bin setup instead of a 2-1 or a 1-1 setup, I'm able to craft these and it's perfectly fine. I've got the bins to do it. And so I think it totally makes sense for you to stick at around 2,000 energy, which is what I would have if I saved my 4,000 gems and got this other expansion, because then I'd have room for the furniture that's in my there we go. That's in my inventory right now. Like you can see, I've got 10 that are at least level 10, level 11 stuff, but they're just sitting there doing nothing, not giving me the energy. So I would have well over 2,000 energy at this point. Plus I would have my 3-2-3 setup. I can easily craft tier 10s at this time, and then you can kind of diverge into the different lines that you're going to. If you're going to be free to play, of course, I say you should focus on enchantments only, 2 elements, 2 spirits. If you're going to be pay to play, or you're going to get decent items from King's Caprice, or you're even somewhat pay to play, whether you either have moonstones or runestones, then it's daggers, moonstones or runestones, and then 2 items, 1 wood and 1 leather, right, to fill out the ether side or the jewel side. That kind of makes sense. And if you're going to be just sticking with element spirits, then obviously you've got your spirit side, which is all going to be jewels, and your element side, which is all going to be ether, right? So you pick 2 of each, it fills out your tier 3 resources nicely, and you continue on. So if you do it this way, I think it makes a whole lot of sense. You're not going to get behind on all of your upgrades. You're not going to have too much space for stuff. You're going to be able to progress naturally. You're going to have, your 230, 240, 250 items mastered. You're going to have the blueprint scrolls ready to go to unlock all of your tier 8s and start specializing into your tier 9, tier 10, tier 11 after that, depending on where you want to go. And I think that this really is the most pivotal time in any account, that you have a really good foundation, you have a good understanding of the game at this point. Hopefully you kind of know which lines that you want to focus on going forward, and your shop is just at a really good point in time to sprint forward, to get your 2 expands and to move into the higher tiers, the tier 3 resources, and begin to specialize. So those are all the reasons why I really think that level 60 is so important, and also hopefully a little bit of understanding on why I think that it's smarter not to craft anything tier 8 and above, not to put out tier 3 resources until after you get your level 60 expand, because then you can actually go into it with strength instead of feeling like you're weak and overextending and you don't even have close to the energy to surcharge anything that you're making, and the game just feels really clunky and not as enjoyable because you're trying to do too much with too little, and you don't have the upgrades or the expands to do it properly. So this is how I think that it should be done properly. Of course, other people may have different opinions than me, and that's perfectly fine. But honestly, after playing through the game twice now and 3 times to level 40, I really think that that's the best way to go. So anyway, if you have questions or anything, please feel free to let me know. DM me in Discord if you want as well. And of course, if you don't mind at least interacting with this video in some way, that would be amazing too. So anyway, have a great week, you guys. Thank you so much for everything. Love you all. I'm excited for the 1-year anniversary stream coming up soon. So hopefully I'll see lots of you guys there. And yeah, have a great week. Thanks so much. Talk to you all later. Peace.